Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, I've decided to follow up on the Wilfried Wong case here, this satanic abuse expert who felt the great need to intervene and save a child who was being satanically sexually abused. Him and a group of, I believe, was it 5 or 6 other people, intervened and grabbed this child to save her life and bring her to a safe place so she wouldn't have to live in the world of satanic abuse any longer. Was caught after saving this child and prosecuted by the British authorities. This happened in the UK. Wilfried Wong is a British citizen. So, very, very interesting case and a very strange, which is the reason why I'm revisiting this. It's the same old story, you know. In life, they tell you to make sure that you're a good citizen, make sure you go out there and help people if someone's in trouble. And people always criticize someone who, you know, someone's on the side of the road, needs help, or you don't intervene, or you just kind of look the other way, which is so common in society. And, of course, society perpetrates this. They like to keep people unarmed in most countries. So if you intervene, you're intervening with your life on the line. This happened to actor Don Stroud, a popular actor in the late 70s and 80s. He was on many TV shows and was filming in New York City and intervened a mugging, and they cut his face all up, destroying his life. He never really worked much after that, even though with cosmetic surgery, he didn't look too bad. But that's what you get, intervening. Nobody in the movie set there that was with him, which I'm assuming there must have been literally maybe 100, at least 50, 60 people, and many bystanders. No one went in there and helped for the reason that Don Stroud found out, is that you're not going to get help from anybody and they're going to attack you. But of course, people like to say that, of course, he was a hero and all that was wonderful to go with that. But the point is, if we're either going to trust the citizenry or not, and of course, it's very easy to approach a situation in this day and age and really attack the wrong person, even though in a case of with this Don Stroud, it was quite obvious that these were muggers and hoodlums robbing someone. In other cases, it may not be that cut and dry. Someone could even be fighting the police and be the hero. After all, the police are all corrupt working for the criminals. So it's very difficult now, but the bottom line is that everything in life, and particularly the rap that you hear from these these Brits who like to talk on hyperboles of how wonderful and great, and we're going to go out and fight here and fight, all the stuff they talk about, which is just complete garbage as it is. But they really like to flap their mouths with hyperboles of the higher good, and we're going to do this, and well, of course, it never ever happens with any of that. So they're no different than anybody else. But if a child was being attacked someplace, let's say on the street, and you went there and intervened to help that child, you would be called a hero, wouldn't you? Maybe not in the UK, mate. Maybe put you in handcuffs and beat you with a pipe. How dare you save this little girl? So, I mean, there's a real problem here with the way things are looked at, and further complicated by apparently the highly corruption of the British law system, who thumped this guy in a unbelievably long prison term for basically doing nothing except trying to save somebody. Nobody was hurt. Nobody was traumatized, and potentially here there will be more traumatization as this child is going to be staying with their alleged satanic abusers. The problem is we just don't know. But I mean, if you look at this thing from a different understanding, then you get things very clear. So here's someone that was trying to investigate things, plan apparently with the 5 or 6 others, putting their life on the line. And there were some people injured. One of these people was murdered in prison. So the whole idea is that, the safe place called prison, apparently. And I hear this all over the world. The prisons, no matter where you are places of execution. So here's another one coming out of that. So if you think it's only bad in America, well, you're gobsmacked stupid. So we have problems when we get into all these things of what is the appropriate behavior here. And what happens if something is going on and everybody ignores it? What happens if you contact the local authorities and they claim there's nothing they can do? They claim that they investigated. They all like to write reports and investigate. Nothing happens from it. So the whole idea is that what do you do then? Tanya, Beck, and Ron. Well, I mean, this is what most people do. So it's unfortunate that a lot of the world didn't do that with so many countries that have begged for the help of the West, and particularly Great Britain, who in 2 world wars were unable to fight for their country properly and had to bring in the might and blood of hundreds of thousands of Americans. So unfortunately, we didn't turn our backs on them so they could be speaking with a German accent and eating sausage every day. Yo, give me bad beer and crap. So this is the kind of things you run into in the bigger picture of the world. And, I never forget anything. I don't think we should ever forget anything that anybody's done anytime. So you have to be fully aware of what's going on. I mean, the problem is when you try and get information, you piece the pieces together from the bad news media, the corrupt reporters, the people who have an axe to grind. There's some guy on YouTube, some Scottish guy, the guys who surrendered to the British and then voted to be slaves. They like banging it, bending over. Yeah, man. The Scots, unbelievable, who were then sent by the British to Northern Ireland to kill the Irish, and they were up to that task. So the whole idea is that, all these other issues do come in, and they're kind of interesting in the bigger picture, even though we get off the subject here. So Wilfred Wong is a very interesting guy. The facts of this case are like everything else. Who do we believe? The information that's come out as of recent here, and this has been 2 years ago, and so there's a fair amount online, but the conclusion of this is all kind of weird and what supposedly happened. Now, you got to remember the British court systems are quite a bit different than the United States and other places, and if you come out during a court case and talk about it, that's contempt of court, and you could be arrested and thrown in prison. So, there's good and bad about all of this stuff. I see what's going on with so many cases, and people are just flapping their mouth with their own opinions. They're not in the court. They don't know what the evidence is. And it really is unfair to make statements, particularly when people's lives are on the line. They're doing that with the Danny Masterson Scientology case. I'm not sure this has anything to do with Scientology. This shouldn't be brought into it to any great degree. And secondly, everybody, this guy is fighting for his life. This is a 40-year sentence. The guy is 40, so his rest of his life will be spent in prison. Is this a joke? Shouldn't he deserve a fair trial? I don't care what they've charged him in. We don't really know. He already had a case that he was a hung jury. So that shows me this is far from a cut and dry situation that we have here. So keeping a certain policy on not prejudicing the people out there may be a good idea in some aspects, like so many things are when you look at bigger pictures. But let's also look at this case of who Wilfried Wong is. Now, it's interesting to note with this guy the facts of whom he is. And it has come out a wee bit. As usual, when I do research, I've watched, I don't know, 20, 30, just about everything on YouTube and some things on the net that pertains to this case, trying to piece it together from really a bunch of very bad sources. Now, we have statements by Wilfried himself. We have boobish commentators who come on and want to think this is so terrible. Somebody tried to save a child from horrible abuse. Oh, that's terrible, isn't it? I mean, this is the kind of idiots you get out there in general. And they have the nerve to pass this stinky gas consistently on their garbage channels. Chancer. So the whole idea is that we have a lot of these problems out there. So who is this guy? Now, he's been studying satanic ritual abuse for 27 years. He has worked in government as an assistant to some of the politicians there to do research. He's worked in the whole field of human rights. So this isn't some goofball, psychotic guy running around with a Bible screaming that the world needs to be saved from Satan, even though it does apparently come out that he is a Christian and probably a strong one. Of course, well, that's kind of a strike against him, but the bottom line is that it's not overly surprising either. I mean, obviously, I don't know how anybody can justify anything negative. How can you say Satanism is good? I love pollution. We should pollute everywhere. Matter of fact, I was drinking some pure water yesterday, and I said, gee, this would be better if we put some pollution in it. So the whole idea is, I don't know how you can come out, but there are obviously lots of Satanists. A lot of people don't care about Satanism. They shrug. People are friends of Satanists. Entire industries are taken over them, like the radionic industry, and like some people who just recently quoted one of the scumbucket people of the satanic movement, Charles Casamano, saying that he was amused by him and followed his training, Radetti. Aren't you a nice little Satanist? So the whole idea is that all of these things that go out there is quite interesting. Nobody really seems to care. Well, isn't that the case with so many things? But the bottom line is that this guy is certainly not some sort of goofball guy on the street in some bad B movie on his knees with his Bible screaming Satan's after him. So the whole idea is we have to understand all this stuff as well. So this is a professional person. He is a lawyer. I don't know if he ever practiced, but he is a barrister, meaning he's an attorney in the United Kingdom. He did work for politicians. Apparently, he is a Christian. He has military service as well. So he has some military skills there. So this is far from him. And this isn't a guy who has been studying this for a few years, 27 years. And he's seen, heard, and had testimony from a lot of people stating the horrific things that these satanic abuse people do to each other and particularly children. So after years of hearing this, 27 years of hearing this, I'm assuming, and reporting it to the actual authorities and having very few of these cases acted upon, even though I believe there are, and I don't know what time period it is, but he states there has been 7 or 10 satanic abuse cases prosecuted in the UK successfully, which seems to be tiny amounts. He's also talked to a lot of people who were victims of it. Again, making this very personal in your life when you talk to people. So then finding that nobody really cares, nobody's very interested. So we run into the usual problems here, and your head being banged against the wall. And this guy's immersed in this. And one of the problems of being immersed in this and being a sympathetic, good person is that you're easily misled. You want to believe what people tell you. You certainly don't want people to come to you that are hurting and say, well, this doesn't sound right. Have you got checked out for mental problems? Well, all people that are either sick with an unknown disease or have something unusual happen to them, whether it's alien abductions or satanic abuse, well, the problem is they all tend to be labeled that. And we don't want to believe that mankind is that evil. We want to think that that's not the way it is. We have systems set up to take care of this. Yeah, corrupt, rotten systems with a bunch of people that are as bad as you can possibly get in the universe called Earth beings. So, you're in a difficult position. And of course, I do a lot of this research myself. I've heard from some of these people. And the bottom line is that it is difficult to, in any way, try and question or criticize. But you have to look at these things because, unfortunately, we live in a world of a lot of mentally ill people and a lot of people seeking attention for whatever reasons. And to a large extent, they are sincere, but it may not be the full story. Certainly, he should know a little better, but after being in an industry for so long and seeing such little progress, and then hearing horrific stories, and even doing research himself where he followed people to, and he stated this on his YouTube interviews, that he followed these Satanists to places where they were having meetings, indoors and outdoors. And of course, indoors, he used to watch them as well. But of course, you can't see what's happening inside and what he was supposed to do. So he has stated that at one time when watching one of these places, that he heard a scream, but it wasn't consistent or continuing. It was hard for him in a legal position. Now, remember, he's an attorney. He should know what's going on here, I think. I'm a little bit surprised with many aspects of this story. So he said, well, if it was longer and everything else legally, I could have pushed my way in to do it. He's going to push his way in against a coven of people there. Sounds to me like that's suicidal and very dangerous. And the fact is legally, pushing your way into a house because you heard a scream better be something that is very verifiable. Because, again, you're putting yourself in horrible legal positions. It's amazing to me that a Bannister like this would talk like that. Of course, we know that the police are not your friend, but generally when something like that happens, that you call the police because that's their job to take care of things like this. So it shows to me that, is that clear thinking? You're going to rush into a group of people because someone is screaming and do what? I'm not really sure. I believe that Wong is Chinese, but last time I checked, he wasn't related to Bruce Lee. So the whole idea is that there's some judgments in here. And as a so-called ex-military guy or having military experience, he's not thinking very clearly. Very odd. And he said this on an interview show. And of course, all this stuff is on YouTube. I tend not to hunt up these things. It's there. You want to go around and look at all this stuff and see what it is there. I don't really have time to get all the links up there, and I don't think people really care. You're going to watch 14 shows like I did. That's why you have me. And of course, I'm the only one that really can judge stuff like this because I have a background to do it. So your opinion is worthless, basically, whomever you are. So the whole idea is that strange thinking. As I said, Wilfried is a highly educated person and everything else comes off a little goofy to me. I don't know. Is that personally me? I'm not sure what that's about. Whatever that means, what is goofy? As I said, it seems to almost have a strange way of looking at things for a guy who's an attorney, should know the law well, but I don't know if he ever practiced law, who's worked for politicians, worked in the human rights field for years. And as he said, he's seen like a lot of people that work in a lot of industries. All he sees is the lack of enforcement, the lack of doing anything out there, the lack of change in all the injustices out there. Nothing ever changes. And certainly in this field, it doesn't. And so there has been a great... the media, along with all the corrupt officials and everything else, have pretty much taken this, which was called at one time the Satanic Panic, and laughed at it, saying none of this was true, when We all know, anybody who knows these people and these what's happening with Satanism in general and what's going on from their pedophile activities that are international, that apparently involved high-ranking people, politicians, police, etc. Anybody that knows anything about these things, even not in the Satanism field, if you're anybody who really knows how the world is working, you would be not surprised at this at all. Average person doesn't really know what's going on. The level of corruption internationally is so large and intense that it is shocking. And not only internationally, everywhere. All the systems are rigged and controlled by a bunch of bad people. Now, you probably don't believe that. Oh, no, my kindergarten is fine. Well, your bottom line is that you're an ignorant boob if you think that. And, of course, that's what runs the world. The one who runs the world is let's just deny it. But let's get back to this case a little. So, I mean, that's his background, which is a pretty good background. He also apparently had some training in how to handle himself, in a potential combat situation. He knows what the law is, I hope. So, I mean, all this comes together, and he's been studying satanic activities for 27 years. So, and this is not an average dude in any way whatsoever. Yet, and it's, to think that you can't be tricked, conned, and set up, well, that's another thing that you as a person trying to help is easily tricked and conned because you're very sympathetic to the victim. And, of course, that's how all these con artists and Satanists and all work. They do things like asking you to help them, to distract you or get you out of the way. Oh, my little kid here hurt her foot. Can you help me? They position themselves with children when they do anything. So that it looks like this is a terrible thing happening and you're attacking children, which, of course, if that happens, is much easier to get a conviction. Well, this person was attacking my child. So this is what they do, and this is how the baddies of this world work. Now, you probably don't understand that as the average listener to it, but maybe you should. But, you're too busy hiding somewhere and taking care of your own little pathetic life. So the whole idea is that this is how the world works. And it's not really complicated. It's been going on for God knows how long, at least 100 years. And, of course, all of the reality of this, now that we have technology and internet, etc., the working together internationally at police departments is really shocking when they tell you that, we can't control nothing. We can't find anybody. We can't deal with organized crime. So, which is all a complete and total lie. And the reason I'm covering this is the fact is this is what Wilfried was looking at after contacting the authorities. I believe he contacted the police on this. They investigated and said they couldn't find anything. Kind of like, I don't know why they just don't carry that card with them. When you talk to them, say, here's my card. Okay. I can't find anything. Okay. So this is the usual thing that goes on. Unless they want to harass you, and then as the British police did in the subway, I don't know, it was 5-10 years ago, to some poor Spanish immigrant, when a special forces team or special police team went in there and shot that innocent guy. There was nothing ever linked to him, 9 times in the head. And let's remember the CCTV, the closed circuit TV cameras, mysteriously didn't work then. They never work when something really happens. There's some excuse going on, etc., because they have CC cameras all over Britain. They have since, guess what, 1984, when they installed all this stuff to watch everybody. The problem is that's easier said than done because there isn't people to watch all these cameras. But I won't get into all the details of that either. But, the cameras never work. I've seen this happen time and time again with incidents, and there's always some sort of glitch where you don't see the important factors of it. So this guy is very educated, knows what he's doing. He's studied this area. I think he has a little bad judgment in several areas. Say he's going to bang a door in, which I don't know how you're going to possibly do that anyway. I don't know if he had anybody with him, even if he did. To think you're going to push your way into somebody's house that is doing illegal stuff and a group of them, and you're going to do what? Bruce Lim? Oh, 15 to 1. Yeah, easy 5 for me. 85. So the whole idea is this is kind of silly talk. So that's why I have certain problems with some of his thinking, even though I don't think there's a sincerity problem here. And certainly there isn't a money situation here. There's no money made in what he's doing. I'm not even sure how he survives. I don't think he's written any books. I don't know what he does on the side. It is kind of interesting of how people survive. I always like to know, well, what are you doing to take care of yourself? There's a lot of fascinating things that most people want to do. Maybe you want to skateboard all day. Well, you don't do that because you don't have the money to do it. So you do, well, I'm going to skateboard. Well, you're going to sleep on the street. You're not going to eat. So it's not what you want to do. It's the problems of financial security here. So we've got to understand the reality that we're looking at here in terms of the bigger picture of what's going on. So it was just not him that was involved in this incident. I think there were 5 other, with him would be 6. There was, and this is where, it's interesting how everything turns to poo. And I'd like to look at these things and find out what's going on. But we don't know what happened with this child or not, because this was not the final result of it. And part of the problem of us not having this child further investigated, just saying that he was out of his mind and his group were a bunch of maniacs, basically they're saying that he deliberately kidnapped this child for no particular reason. Just because he felt like it, with nothing. And, they're not going into the fact that, there's no money involved in this. Nobody was hurt. The only thing going on here was a person who was trying to save an innocent child from a life of torture. Yet this is not expressed by the press. The judge took this into consideration and flushed it down the toilet and gave him a terrible sentence for so many years of a guy who was trying to help. A guy who didn't hurt anybody. There's some discussion of a knife, and there's 2 different things here. And of course, anytime you have weapons, this makes everything worse. We don't really know if there was any weapons. So again, we don't have much information here to go by. And apparently, Wilfried is not talking, or at least not doing it. And I don't know if this is imposed upon him or he doesn't want to say anything. Because he has a, 17 or 18 year sentence. And if he comes out now with a bunch of information, this sentence he may have to spend his entire sentence, or maybe have things added on. They already added on to his sentence. It shows you the kind of horrific justice there is when here's a guy trying to save somebody with no benefit. Everything that happened there happened at a high cost, not only physically to put money into this, that people invested, this small group of 6 courageous people. They put their lives in danger. And of course, what happened? They all got 16, 17 years. That is a long time. And most of them were in their 50s and 60s. So they're basically, their life in prison is their life. One of the members was found dead in his cell, apparently from asphyxiation of a plastic bag type of. Now, again, we're not getting any kind of information here, and I don't know why people aren't. I don't know. Instead, it's very different in the United States. People are not even speculating, apparently. Found dead, cause of death, plastic bag, asphyxiation. In a prison? Do they give people plastic bags as part of the check-in procedure? Here's people that are just brought in here who are obviously highly depressed. Do they make sure they have plastic bags? So that was the prison coroner's end result, and they're not commenting on how this could happen. Now, there's two things, obviously, that could have happened in this poor person's case. Being the hero he was, and he was 65 years old, with a sentence of at least 15 to 16 years, that's 80 years old. Most likely, he's going to die in prison. And do you want to spend that time in prison? He did his courageous act. It was time to go. It certainly looks like that was probably suicide, or it could have been assisted suicide. Maybe he knew too much. Maybe something was going on. Maybe he had connections. We don't know. People don't think the bigger picture. But that was the reward this person got for trying to save a child from an entire lifetime of torturous misery. But it was only the rescuers that inflicted mental problems on this girl. Now, the things that even get more bizarre here is and of course, as I've said several times, he is an attorney. And what he came out with as his defense just can't be labeled anything but bizarre. And the fact is, they do like all people do. I'm sure that all of these people were threatened. Maybe their family was threatened. This is how your justice system works, whether it's happening from the inside or the out. So they started fighting with each other. Another bad mistake, but very effective. If they would have stood together, and kept the same opinion they had, it would have been much more difficult to give out these kind of sentences. This bogus or non-bogus reality claiming that he had a knife, Wilfried, and I don't know if anybody was threatened with it or not. I'm not sure. Did he really need to threaten some nanny to grab this woman? Did he? And he couldn't have punched her in the face. Mr. Army guy? Army. Me gonna go on building and fight 16 guys. Ah, cuckoo. So the whole idea is that, did he really need that? I don't know if he had that or not. He's not talking. There was a, supposedly, in the police report, and all of what I'm giving you here is second-hand, third-hand information. Who knows how these details are right or not. But they supposedly found on him a bag that had a mask in, a balaclava, as they call it, one of those ski-type masks you pull over your face, a serrated knife, and the picture I saw in this, it looks like one of those long bread knives. Not a short one, but a long one, 8-10 inches. You cut a piece of bread with, so you go back and forth over it, a loaf of bread, I should say. And he had the proverbial plastic ties, you tie pipes and stuff with, but often used for handcuffs. Plastic ties. Big ones, supposedly. So they found this bag supposedly on him, as well as finding a knife on him, or was it this bag? I don't know. Well, I mean, there's a lot of weird. So what do you mean you found this bag? He had that in the car that he was in, and we'll get into what was going on there as well. This is some really effed up thinking, Wilfried. You're a lawyer. You're carrying things with you that are obviously incriminating. You're a person from a military background. You don't get it? You don't get any of this stuff? Why was that there? This couldn't be cleaner if it was done in a dime store novel. It's a setup. So this is really one of the major problems here of what's going on with this whole particular case, which is weird. And we'll get into the details in part 2. This is the end of part 1.